Welcome. Welcome to another fantastic episode of This Uncanny Earth, episode 268. Tonight we're talking about Faustian bargains, i.e., deals with the devil, as it were, and other such agreements with entities that you may or may not have heard of. As always, I am your host, Robert Solomon, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Spider. How are we doing this week, Spider?
Well, it's been a little tough. If people hear me talking a little funny and see me making some weird expressions with my face, I got a tooth problem, as usual, and there's a sharp leftover of a broken tooth slicing my tongue every time I move my mouth,
Oh, well,
way
that's
back
not
here.
good. That's not good.
So I've got this weird lispy thing going on, and I look funny because I'm going like, so I'm your comedy relief for the evening, clearly. Um, but we're gonna see what we can do. I'm gonna try my best not to come off like I don't know. I can't even come up with a funny person that's lispy like that.
If it ain't one thing, it's another. Am I right?
Uh oh, and a
Well,
sick cat too. Just
goodness
had the
gracious.
dog, but she's getting better. She's better faster than I am.
Uh, what's up? Deadpool is here. Of course, he'll be joining us free shortly here to talk about Neuralink. Also, Sound Zeus, what's going on? Yes, 100%. We are back. Yes. It is odd like that. Scruffy's probably floating around here somewhere. I don't know. Do me a favor, Sound Zeus, and throw this in the gilded for me in the podcast section if you would not mind, sir. So, how is everybody besides Spider? Apparently, Spider's going through it, I
Constantly
guess.
falling apart.
It's falling apart. He will be here at the show, even if we have to go to his funeral and put a lavalier mic on him while he's dead. He'll come back. Don't worry. Don't
You have to
worry. He'll come
decide on
back.
that Ouija board whether you're gonna use it or not. I gotta come back
It's a tough
somehow.
one. That's a tough one because
That's a toughie.
if we bring you back, then we got to bring back your cantankerous ways as well. And I don't know if the earth can handle that. So, anyways, but welcome, 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 one and all. So, how's everybody this morning? I hope it's well. We got Deadpool here. Let's bring him in. He's typing right now. He's busy typing with his
Tippy
Commodore
tappy tippy tappy
64.
tippy tap 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 tap.
Tappity tap taps. He's our man. He's our correspondent. Actually, first, let's bring him in. Let's bring in old Deadpool. There he is. Look at this guy. He's in space. That's crazy. This is look. You can see the man himself. He's a real person. He's live from the atmosphere. He's live from the.
Outer
I don't know where
space.
he's at. He's not. He's not obviously not on the moon because the moon is behind him and to
He's from
his
Nibiru approaching to smash again.
Nibiru. Yeah, he's Marduk. We got Marduk live. Marduk, how's it been floating around the universe for the past 2,436 years? You're not supposed to be here for at least another 300 years. So we don't like that. We don't like that whatsoever. But he does have a camera now, so now you can see what he looks like. Now we're all the uncanny bunch. So yeah. Before we start, I wanted to talk to you guys about something. The Herculeum scrolls have been somewhat deciphered using AI technology. Now there was a challenge that went out, I think, what was it, last year, that they were going to give somebody $1 million if they could decipher the whole scroll. Well, they ended up using AI technology and a type of X-raying to be able to read the scrolls because the scrolls are compact. And if you try to open one, it will fall apart. And they were reading it using bits and pieces of crumpled up paper. So you have to understand, like, the ink, the way they use ink back then isn't the way they use ink today. So I thought that was interesting. I'm very excited to see what the scrolls contain. They've only pulled a little bit. I think they pulled the word purple out of it so far. So I think we're going to see something really amazing. And either they'll tell us what they are or they'll lie to us and say that it's just about making trade. They'll say it's for trading. So
They could say it's about Grimace.
Grimace, yeah.
The shake that was
Hi,
foretold.
Zeus.
The shake, yes, the shake.
Yeah.
The shake that gave probably a lot of
horror
people
stories.
cancer, I think. That's a conspiracy. I don't know if it's true. And there's a cat right there in the frame there. So I got to ask you, Deadpool, because you're out there, how are you able to breathe in space?
Because I got the Neuralink installed and I got some space lungs, so I don't need to breathe anymore.
We have no idea what Neuralink is, so why don't you go ahead and tell us what Neuralink actually is and who created it?
All right, so excuse me. Neuralink was actually created by Elon Musk, and the first thing I want to tell you about it is oh, it didn't let me post my comment, but if you could post that comment for me or
Which
just the link.
do you
Let me
have
see if it'll let me send it to the private chat. Yeah, it let me send it to the private chat. So if you could
That's all
post
right.
that link in the chat
we
for
got
me.
you.
That is a link.
I didn't know we were
Oh,
working for
go ahead.
him. I didn't know that.
It's like self-checkout at Walmart.
Yeah. So
Thank
that
you,
link
Celsius.
is actually talking about Elon Musk himself is talking about how the Neuralink will be able to basically upload your brain to a cloud, like like saving your game in a video game or making a backup of your computer. And you'll be able to download that brain into a new robot body in the future. Like after you die, you'll be able to basically download your brain into a new body. So, to actually explain the Neuralink a little bit better, it is something called a brain computer interface, and it uses something called a Utah array, where it installs these little spiky things. I don't, there's, words for it. It's complicated, but it's like these little spikes, and they attach to your brain. And when they get attached to your brain, they get all the electric signals because your brain sends off electric signals, and that's how it tells your body what to do. Like my hand's moving right here, because the electric signals from my brain are telling it what to do. So the more we learn about brains and computers, the more complicated it becomes to differentiate between a human and a computer. And as of January 29th, 2024, we officially have cyborgs. The first Neuralink was successfully installed, and he said that things are going well so far. So we officially have cyborgs now.
How are
go
they?
ahead.
How are they able to link Neuralink with a computer? Like, how does it work in terms of
Okay.
calibrating it and things like that?
So they're able to link Neuralink to your brain because of it has these little tiny fibers that are like 30 times smaller than human hair. And those little wires basically go into your brain and get connected to the electronic signals. And those signals are sent outwards to your phone and then translated and sent back to other devices. And that's the theory is once they advance the technology a little bit further, they're going to be able to do this thing called telepathy. That's their first goal. Their first step is going to be an app called telepathy, which will allow you to use your phone as an interface to basically over Bluetooth communicate with your computer and like move your mouse around or whatever else you need to do. Basically, anything you can connect to your phone can be connected to your brain via Bluetooth.
It sounds a little bit like Mass Effect with
Cyberpunk.
the implants you get from
Yeah.
the
The biotics, the biotic
yeah,
Yes.
implants. Yeah.
or even
Um,
worse, like the indoctrinated, because they
So,
eventually get those machine parts.
what are some of the negative aspects that you see happening here, Steve? What do you think is like
Okay.
negative
First,
ramifications?
let's go with the medical stuff first. So one
Okay.
of the medical concerns that they pointed out is that you might potentially get some sort of poison or some sort of long-term effects of having, basically metal in your brain at all times. And they haven't had, a long time to test that. So one of my personal theories is like, there's a lot of chemicals in our brain and, liquids. So what if the metal starts to rust over time? How would that affect our bodies and our brains and everything?
Now, I wouldn't think it would rust just based on the fact that, as a person who does have metal in their body, I have titanium screws and pins in my ankle and in my leg,
Ouch.
from surgery about 10, 15. Well, no, I've been about 20 years now.
So
20
Achilles
years
ain't got
back
nothing on
close.
you.
And it's I can feel it when it's cold outside and things of that nature. but it doesn't rust. I never have to worry about that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would worry about in this situation is the body rejecting it, since you're dealing with something that is
Because it is
100%.
like an organ.
Yes, running off your nerves. It's different when you put it into bone, because bone works a little bit different than bone and muscle tissue work a little bit different than your vital organs. You get a liver transplant, and if it doesn't take, and the body starts rejecting it and
It can make
sends.
you really sick.
Yes, and I have to wonder if in this case that is a possibility. Did they say what type of metal they are using for this implant?
Out of the research that I found, I did not find anything talking about the exact type of metal that they were
Because that's
using.
the thing too, because electronic components and computer chips tend to use heavy metals.
Yeah.
I mean heavy not as in like they weigh a lot, but heavy as in there's a lot to them. They're very dense.
Yeah.
Because they have to be able to conduct the electricity and to do the various things. And historically, heavy metals have always had problems with kind of leaching into your bloodstream and different things. Usually when people get metal poisoning,
Like
it's from
mercury
heavy
and
metals.
stuff.
Yeah, it's not from just like basic, like tinfoil isn't going to do it, and like steels isn't going to do it, but copper and gold and silver and certain other things, which are your heavy metals, are going to
Even though
cause more issues.
they had you drinking silver for a hot minute, whatever. Colloidal silver was like the hot thing back like
Alex
15 years
Jones.
ago. Yeah, he was big on the colloidal silver.
I would like to point out one of the comments by Drac475. Skynet is coming. Get the rifles.
We're ready for it. We're ready for it.
Speaking of that, though, speaking of Skynet, I find it very funny, or less funny, more ironic, because out of everything I've seen, Elon Musk says he's so worried about AI taking over. He's so scared about Terminator and Skynet. Then why did he just give AI all the tools they need to destroy us?
Here's the question that I have regarding Neuralink. Is it hackable?
That is exactly what I wanted to get into next. But before that, one more thing I wanted to point out about the medical part is it is such a delicate procedure that they actually have to use a robot to install the chip inside your brain.
Well, robots are the future of surgery, because they're not like a human. They're not gonna have a shake, or they're not gonna have a slip or a mishap. So I can see that.
And now,
Drag makes a good point here. With dental gold is okay, they can use that. However, oddly enough, they don't use dental gold that much now. Now they use a form of resin that they put in your mouth as a gel, and then they take a light. It's like a UV light, and the light hardens, and it's almost like a plastic that hardens inside of your teeth now. Very, very fascinating. And they've been doing that for about 15, 20 years. So a lot of the metal in the mouth thing has gone by the wayside in terms of silver and gold fillings. So gold's a precious metal. So it'd be very interesting to see if they could put gold in the brain and what that would do. Because if we look at a computer itself, a computer chip is much like a brain. It's just a brain for computers. Your motherboard, and it sends signals out.
Your brain is the motherboard. Your eyes are the graphical processor.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sound Zeus. I appreciate that. Sound Zeus over there sharing on his Facebook. So he has a real name. I thought his real name was Sound Zeus. I thought that was what he was given when he was born. First name Sound, last name Zeus.
That's his Christian name.
Yes.
Now, to get into your hacking question.
Yes, please.
The Bluetooth. Now, I haven't actually done much research on hacking in general, but from what I understand, I've heard that Bluetooth is fairly easy to hack in general. And we haven't really heard any specifics on like the safety features, but like you said, hacking is one of the concerns. And now here's where we get to the fun part. Has anyone ever played Cyberpunk?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have.
Yep. That's exactly what I thought when I thought about the potential for hacking. Like you could just get into someone's brain and make them, you could basically take control of their entire body once you figure out how to hack into it.
Mess with the autonomous nervous system, overheat them.
It's only a matter of time, right?
Does Neuralink have that ability to control bodily functions?
Okay, here's the thing. As of right now, no, it does not. But that is one of his goals. One of his ultimate goals is he would like to control basically like prosthetic limbs. So it's not
Mhm.
going to be direct bodily functions, like not your natural limbs that you naturally have. But say, for example, you get a prosthetic limb that can connect to Bluetooth, and he's going to very easy to hack. When in the military, the intel guys would use a truck to hack Bluetooth signals to find terrorists. Yeah, see, Drac confirmed it for us. Bluetooth is easy to hack.
Well, here's the thing. Um, as a person who can see some of the pros here, giving people, paraplegics, giving them the ability to walk, to talk, to basically reactivate a body that was pretty much dead, you know, I think that that can do really great things. I'm a big proponent of biomedical engineering. I have been for a very long time. I think it is the wave of the future, to be perfectly honest. I think we need to come to a point where these sort of things are commonplace. Now, I do see, without the shadow of a doubt, the negative ramifications of what could happen given this technology. And I think a game that really plays well into that, because we're talking a little pop culture here, is
Yeah.
Deus Ex. I think Deus Ex did a
Yes,
really
definitely.
amazing job of pinpointing that biomedical engineering, while a very useful tool for folks. And
Can be
I'll
used for
throw from
evil.
that ring as a person who's had multiple ankle refusion surgeries. It would be a blessing to be able to gut the ankle, put a cybernetic ankle in, one that runs off the connections of my nerves into my head, and be able to do
Yeah.
that. I think would be a godsend.
And that's his end goal, is to be able to get there eventually by the time he's done with all his testing and everything. That is his ultimate goal, is to be able to get there eventually, to where basically how it's going to work. Hi, James. I see you.
We're
I
seeing
see
you,
you.
James. I don't know if some of your comments didn't post. We got your howdy everyone, and we definitely got no one seeing me. We got this one. We got hey Deadpool, so you're good to
Hi,
go.
I think
James.
there was some issue with some people's comments from Facebook or somewhere. I don't know.
But he's off YouTube
Wasn't
though,
there
so I
some?
don't think that'd
But
be an issue.
Yeah,
He's actually
I don't
on the
know.
actual page itself.
I
basically,
Um,
remember we talked about it, but
The Neuralink is going to be sending the signal from your brain to your phone, and then the phone is going to connect the Bluetooth to your prosthetic limb and allow you to control it that way.
I think the more we delve into our cranial capacities, our brain functionalities, I think I personally love it. I love
Yeah.
the concept of being able to engineer a better body. But now here's the key but of this whole argument. I don't think it works out in this society. I don't think it works out for human beings. I
Cyberpunk, look what
I
they did
think
with the
it
brain trips.
I think it messes up the natural order.
Yeah.
Um, unless we could get out and go amongst the stars and go to different planets and things of that nature, right? Um, yeah,
mm,
yeah. Shadowrun classic, classic. Um,
mercenary
I
work.
don't I don't see us as we are now, stuck here on this planet with an increasing population, and corporations being as greedy as they are, as we have seen in many different instances. I don't see it playing out very well for us at present. But I think if we could, um, put aside our differences, so to speak, not having all these wars going on across the world, and um, come together for a better future, and set our pinpoint out to the stars, and be able to reach different planets and colonize different planets, I think then you have a better idea of being able to handle. But I think the general consensus is human beings are corrupt. We're
Yeah.
flawed people. We only live short times. So because we only live short times, we do everything we can to get everything we can in that short amount of time that we do. Have very materialistic ideologies
Very
behind how human
obsessed.
beings act and react. However, extend that life expectancy, and who knows if that greed, if that corruption would change or differ. And I think James brings up a good point. This is how Genesis started, and he goes on to say it didn't end one. There's a lot of different theories regarding the Genesis theory. There's a lot of different aspects regarding the concept of the fallen angels, which we'll get into that at some point in one of our talks. And I'll be lecturing in Sharon, PA, on the 30th of March, which should be Saturday because Sunday's Easter this year. 31st is Easter in March. So Easter's in March. So if you guys get a chance to come on out to PA and come see me talk, I will be touching on Fallen Angels as relates to Giants. So please come out. This is definitely a plug. Shout out to Bill Rigby for hooking this up. So I will be there. I think I'm going on 3rd. So come on out, say what's up, come see me, come talk to me, come holla at me, come let's talk some such. Yeah, I know some vets too. I that would do that. I hate to say the only way we separate species come together, and it's funny because Reagan talked about that years ago in one of his speeches that that's the only way you can get things to come together is that extraterrestrial aspect to come in as an outside force and take over because there's too many different human ideologies. There's wars being fought that have been fought since before any of us in the United States existed, before the United States was even a country. There's still ongoing fights over religious beliefs across the Middle East, Africa. So that's a problem. You can't bring people together if they consistently hate each other because one person looks different than the other, or one person believes that this person is a god or this person is a god. And I don't think by using the Neuralink and forcing people to act a certain way is a good idea either. And that I think that is what concerns me more is being able to straight turn a person into something they are not. Now, you could essentially create what is known as the Manchurian candidate via Neuralink, somebody that sets out to do an assassination of some sort and have them, say, "Oh, I didn't know it was me." They have been brainwashed. And I think that's something that really worries me about Neuralink. So just I think there's more cons than there are pros in this situation, just based on human ideology. So,
And if I could, I'd like to speak on that, what you mentioned for a second.
please.
About the corporate greed and all that. I was watching some YouTube videos and they brought in the comment section, they get wild. They brought up some interesting points though. And all their joking, they did bring up some interesting points. You get this Neuralink thing, and basically they have complete control over you. Yeah. They could just stream advertisements to your brain 24 hours a day, and you couldn't escape them. You couldn't close your eyes. And what if they turned your prosthetic limbs, like we were talking about earlier? What if your prosthetic limbs is a subscription-based service, and then you don't pay your monthly fees? They just take your legs off. A whole new level of loan sharks.
Or they just keep them from working. They're still attached. They just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
You got to pay, and then you end up in arrears, and it's a mess. And yes, and for people that say, "Oh, they wouldn't do that," I point to you today. Sony finished acquiring Funimation. They are raising the rates. Down. They are raising the rates on the acquisition anime series. Microsoft, Sony have came out as saying that they don't want to produce physical discs anymore. So physical media is going by the wayside. So if you guys think for a second that they won't pull this same stunt with something like that, I would take a look at unless I could just hear that guy every time I work out. Like every time I go lifting, I just want to hear that guy go, EA Sports. It's in the game. That's all I want to hear. If I can hear that just every time I work out, we'd be good to go. Yes. I want to thank Deadpool. Do you have anything else before we get to our topic of the show?
No, you're good.
All right. Thank you, Deadpool, for being our man in the space, I guess.
And before I go, I want to show you my Houdini trick.
All right.
I'm here. No, I'm
not. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Deadpool. We thank you very much, Deadpool, for being our man on the street, as it were. So thank you very much. Check out MK Ultra. Yes, if you have not done a deep dive into MK Ultra, please, by all means, do a deep dive into that. So tonight's episode, we are talking about what I like to call the Faustian bargain. Now, what is the Faustian bargain? If we're going to take a look at the Faustian bargain, let's take a look at Faust. Now, Faust is a story written by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, between 1772 and 1775. That was the first part. The second part was finished in 1806 and it was published in 1808. Many plays have been done, usually more of the first part and less of the second part, or not all of the first and some of the second. It's a very scattered play, to be sure. Now, in the tale, a man named Faust is very unhappy with his life. And so what he does is he attempts to take it. Well, after it is not successful, he calls upon the devil for the knowledge of the world and furthering of his magic powers. Now, let me just say, this is actually based on Johann Georg Faust, who was a German alchemist, astrologer, and magician during the German Renaissance. It's always somebody with alchemy. Always something going on with those alchemy boys.
He also called himself a doctor as if he was a medical doctor of the time.
Yeah.
With the differences of medical science was more alchemical at the time versus scientific.
And you have a lot of that during these times. You have a lot of quote unquote doctors that did a bunch of hokey practices such as bloodletting. They thought the bloodletting was very cathartic.
Still doing the drills in the head to release the demons.
Trepanning. Yeah. And that's still practiced. Believe it or not, in some places. That is a very and supposedly by doing that, you're also opening the third eye. There's a crazy anime called Homunculus. Very weird. Just so we're clear, very weird.
Every time my wife has a headache, I'm always like, I'll just go get the drill. You'll be fine.
And he does it. She has a lot of holes in her head.
It's a long-running joke.
It's a very long-running joke. But so here comes Mephistopheles. Now, Mephistopheles says, okay, I will give you magic powers. It will be through me, and we'll do it for a number of years. The end of those years, the devil is going to come and collect your soul. Well, Faust says, you know what? Okay, let's do it. However, there's two different endings to this Faustian bargain. In the first one, obviously, the devil comes to collect, takes his soul to hell. That's it. In the second one, there's a woman who Faust seduces and ends up impregnating her, and she finds out about this bargain that he made with Mephistopheles. She basically kills herself and pleads to God to save Faust. So Faust is saved by her and him trying to work to be a better person. Now, a lot of times in your dealings with the devil, there's a lot of trickery involved. There's a lot of what you would call loopholes that are found. And so they outsmart the devil. It's a running theme in most cases of Faustian bargains. Now, have you read Faust, Spider?
Yep, long time ago. It was interesting, and there's a lot of facets to it. It's a product of the time, so it's a little difficult language-wise to read some of it, but it is pretty interesting, and it sets the stage for most of our other modern versions of similar stories of people being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to sell my soul to the devil for success or whatever." Fun fact: in school, we had a project where we had to do a video based on some story we were studying, and one of our stories was somebody who sells their soul to the devil, and then years later the devil comes back. I was the devil in that video.
Makes sense.
And I had like a weirdly choreographed kung fu battle against the guy at the end, and then I won and stole his soul anyway. But I don't know. It was weird. We were kids thinking we were artists.
That sounds like a fever dream.
Yeah, it was probably that. I don't know whatever happened to the video. It was a VHS.
Nice. Our buddy Deadpool, he's got the stream put up on Facebook, YouTube, and StreamYard at the same time. He's really doing the work here. I appreciate that. And yes, Castlevania did an excellent job with that too. Big fan of that series. Just depends on the season. Some seasons were better than others, but yeah. And so the Faustian argument is basically one of, can you and should you sell your soul to the devil? Can you? First of all, I think that's a key point. Before we go any further, I don't believe you can, but that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother day. I personally don't. What do you think? Do you believe it's possible?
Um, I think it's more attempting to convince yourself of certain things, and the more you convince yourself, it's more like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you eventually get drawn into a hole of, oh, it's going to come back to me sooner or later. Like you create your own karmic thing, really. But
Right.
that's just my personal thoughts on it.
Deadpool says, "What about the Blues, man? We're gonna get to that, man. Calm
Yep.
down. We're
Got
gonna
it.
we're gonna get to OG Bobby Johnson. Just take a break, sir. Take a break. I want to get to somebody else first because this is more of a interesting aspect to be sure, and that's Pope Sylvester II. Pope Sylvester II, he reigned very, very long time ago. We're talking like early 500 AD, or it was 900 AD to roughly about 1000 AD. And he learned sorcery using a stolen book from an Arab philosopher. Now, what we have to understand is during this time period, Arabian magic was very big. This was a lot. This was a time when you had Christian ideologies, Arab ideologies, Jewish ideologies, all sort of intermingling. So a lot of your higher ups in the church, in these um, Catholic churches, because Catholicism was real big at the time, were going out and collecting these grimoires, these treatises, all these ideas and ideologies on magic, on Arab magic. Arab magic is very interesting, and I have a little something here I'll show you guys in a minute regarding Arab magic. So, more or less, this guy says, "I need help. I want to ascend to the papal throne. I want to take the papal throne." And so, a female demon named Meridiana helps him in this. Now, this is only after he's rejected by his earthly love. What you have to understand is the Pope does not marry. They don't mix with females. And so after that rejection, he's like, I want to ascend to the papal throne. I think it's time. And she supposedly helped him do this. So I wanted to start there because I want to give you guys a basis that anybody can do that. Anybody, doesn't matter if you're a Christian or an atheist or a Jew or a Muslim or a Wiccan practitioner, because what you got to understand here is that you, in these accounts, they are giving their souls to entities. Well, giving them to entities. And so, in that regard, you're going to see a lot of different groups. You're not just going to see the Christian God and the Christian devil here. You're going to see quite a few different groups, and I'll let Spider take it from here. Before he does take it from here, though, I want to say I personally don't believe that that your soul isn't yours. I don't believe it's yours, and I believe at the end of the day it goes back to the Creator from which it came. I don't believe that it goes anywhere else. It's His. I mean, that's personal beliefs. Take that for what it is. You don't have to believe like I do. I'm not forcing it on anybody. I've never forced my opinion. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the Creator, and that's where it stays. It doesn't go anywhere else. Personal. So take that for what it is.
Now we have a bit of a tie-in to last week's episode, where we talked about Wendigos with our guest, and we talked about skinwalkers and things.
We did.
And related to that is the curse of lycanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways supposedly where you didn't get cursed from a bite or from a disease of some kind, you instead could make a deal with a demon where you would sell your soul or sell something, and then you would get the wolf belt that would turn you into the creature. And then if you were killed or you died, then your soul was forfeit after that. So it's an interesting tie-in, and it's an interesting continuation of the belief that while you can get powers and you can get great things from making some sort of a deal with a dark entity, they always come back to collect it. And it's not always, not all the stories ended well either. Sometimes the stories were, while you can find loopholes, so can they.
Yeah.
Because again, Satan is the accuser, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the law.
Yeah.
And he knows how to get around it. And So it's one of those things where, like, the stories about the monkey's paw and about the genie of the lamp,
Yep.
you have to have your phrasing right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have your phrasing right, if there's a word here that's different, or if there's something that can be taken out of context, they're coming back and they're taking that soul.
Yep. The monkey's paw is a good example of that too, because the
Mhm.
monkey's paw, for those of you who don't know what the monkey's paw is, it's basically a monkey's hand, right? And you make a wish and a finger will curl. But if you don't phrase it right, like say you're like, I want $1 million, right? You just got $1 million from a bank, but that bank was robbed because you stole the money. So now the money is in your possession. Now you're a wanted person. That's the
Mhm.
idea of the monkey's paw wishes. Yes, you get your wish, but it always comes with a catch. And a lot of jinn from Arabic folklore
Mhm.
that people think that just like they watch Aladdin, the Disney version, and they think that oh, it's a good wish, but 9 times out of 10, jinn in the Quran and in the subsequent hadiths didn't play fair. They didn't, because jinn don't have to. They operate on a different realm than human beings do. And so they did not do that. They didn't, it wasn't Robin Williams genie. It wasn't Robin Williams jinn. These are entities that were looking for a contract. And once you make a contract with these entities, it is thought that when they come to collect, they're coming to collect. And jinn are
Mhm.
different than the devil. So it's just something that we need to understand when we're dealing with things of the metaphysical nature.
Mhm.
So the next one I want to get into here is the Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible, as it were. There was a monk who lived in a monastery and he couldn't fulfill his monastic vows. He just couldn't do it. So they walled him up. A little context here: religious times in the era of the medieval were harsh. The punishments were harsh. You had people like St. Ignatius of Loyola, who would whip his back with a cat of nine tails, a little hand one with shards of like bone and metal fragments
The
and
flagellants.
rocks and things like that. And they would whip their backs every time they had an impure thought. This was thought to get them closer to God. Pain was thought to get them closer to God. It's a very interesting take on a religious aspect, being that pain is a good deliverer to a godlike entity. And if we look in different historical periods, if we look at the Brahmin priests in India that would lay on beds of spikes, it was thought that that would get you closer to God because you're meditating through the pain. And yes, it is an atonement for sin, because they didn't want the mind to wonder. So it was self-flagellation. They didn't want the mind to
Idle
wonder, so
hands
they're
are the
whipping their
devil's work.
back. Yes. So he says, okay, let me release me from the punishment, and I'll write a book in one night glorifying the monastery and God forever. All the knowledge of humanity will be contained in this book. So his brother said, okay, you can do that. If you do that, we'll release you. Well, he can't, and he realizes that. So instead of praying to God, he prays to the fallen angel Lucifer to help him finish the book in exchange for his soul. Now, the Codex Gigas is an actual book, and it's interesting that Gigas is in here, or Gigas, as it were, meaning giant. So the giant codex it's a very generic term,
Mm.
to call it that. But if anybody's ever seen it, I've seen bits and pieces of it online. It's very devil oriented. They said the guy was just a crazy lunatic, which for me, I think it's more of that. I think it's one of the lines of that. You go through a monastic order and you are force fed certain religious ideologies for so long. At some point it breaks your psyche. I don't care who you are, it'll break your psyche. And maybe it was the self-flagellation he couldn't keep up with. I don't want to hit my back with a cat of nine tails. I don't want to do any of that at all. And maybe it just, after a time, broke his brain. He wasn't able to take it. And then you wall them up in a room. Now, walling up means there's no doors. There might be a sliver of a window to let air in. There's no doors. You can't get out. You are stuck in a room forever, for the rest of your life. You'll never getting out. So you'll starve to death or succumb to something. And the brain will play tricks. If it doesn't have the nourishment, We read about studies of people going without sleep, being sleep deprived for 3 days, and next thing you know, they're seeing all kinds of entities and beings and hallucinations. So how do we not know, or how do we know that this didn't happen? That this guy went crazy? You know, you walled up in there long enough, and you're starting to see the devil. And I it's this in some ways reminds me of the Annalise Michael exorcism tapes. You grow up in that life for so long, your hallucinations are going to revolve around the place and the things that you grew up in. With Annalise Michael, she was a bipolar schizophrenic. And so she was having these religious demons, and demons, she said, were attacking her. And when we do the research on that, we realize that it wasn't so much that, because they gave her um, drugs to counteract that, to sort of balance the chemicals in her brain, and she was fine. She started, mending and being on the up and up, but then they just took it away from her cold turkey. Now, something we have to understand is anytime they take something from you cold turkey in that serious aspect, it will literally ruin your brain, because your brain has been righted, and all of a sudden it's taking it away. And like right then, and I think she had that mental breakdown, and then it just, spiraled deeper and deeper. That's not the point of the conversation, but I think it's a good mirror of, you grew up in such a very religious, strict way of being, so that when your brain breaks around the thing that you grew up being traumatized by. That's my opinion.
And that's a thing with medical science too, because we know nowadays that a lot of the heavier medications, whether they're prescription or otherwise, if it's something that deeply affects you, you have to go on a certain period of something lesser or something to kind of come down off it. The cold turkey approach doesn't work for things like morphine addiction,
Yeah,
or
right.
for certain certain
Even
heavy cocaine addictions,
even
heroin and things.
even heroin.
They
Yeah,
give you, what do they give you?
methadone,
Suboxone or methadone. That's what it is.
Yeah,
And but before they didn't consider that. They were just like, oh well, we think you're better now, so you don't need any of this. Boom,
right.
take it out. And that can physically kill you as
Yes,
much as it can mess up your brain,
yes,
because your body has developed a dependence on it
yep.
to a certain level.
That's 100% true. That's true. So, what do you got for us next?
Well, where are we at? Are we up to
You got the
are we
OG
up
Bobby
to
Johnson.
yeah, yeah. Because I've
I got
always
it
followed
too.
the story because this is super interesting.
It is a super fascinating story. You go ahead and tell it, because I got some other things. So go ahead and tell it. I've known about this for quite a long time, and I've read
Mhm.
stories about it. I've watched videos about it. So tell us about the OG Bobby Johnson.
I'm gonna start off with it and talk a little bit, and then I'm gonna let you take over because pretty
That's fine.
uncomfortable. But I'm gonna get us started.
Understandable.
Um, Robert Johnson was a blues musician, and he recorded between 1936 and 1937. He recorded 29 songs in that time, which is I mean, for the time, I think is a lot of songs, considering that
Yeah.
you can't just go online and just record stuff now
Yeah, he wasn't a
like you can do
SoundCloud
now.
rapper.
Right. And prior to doing all that, he wasn't all that great. He was a decent harmonica player, but a terrible
Yeah.
guitarist. Like he didn't
Yeah.
really do anything that was really impressive. And then he disappeared for a few weeks in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And when he came back, he was a virtuoso. He was
Yeah.
a guitar playing genius. And he wrote all these songs. Now, the legend is that he took his guitar to the crossroads of highways 49 and 61, and he made a deal with the devil, who retuned his guitar in exchange for his soul. That's what I got for now. I got to take
All right.
a break now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that over real quick. Um, so it was one of his friends that told him to go to the Dockery plantation at midnight. They said, as the legends go, the legends were said that, if you go here, you can make a pact with the devil, so to speak. And he said, okay, let me go check this out. So he goes to the crossroads. He's met by a tall black gentleman, and he says, "Okay, give me your guitar." So the devil takes his guitar and he tunes it, and he plays a couple songs, and then he returns the guitar to Bobby Johnson in exchange for his soul. So all of a sudden, like Spider said, he becomes this talented virtuoso blues musician, plays the guitar like nobody's business. Now, I want you guys to understand something here. We're dealing with a time when there was still heavy African spirituality influential in the South. Remember, slavery wasn't that far removed, and a lot of the slaves that were taken from Africa held their spiritual beliefs in hand. If we look at American Gods, there's a very interesting point about the slaves bringing their gods here, and there is a god that comes with them who's a trickster god. Every religion, for the most part, save for your more monotheistics, have a trickster being. Low key, Nancy. Yep, good one, good one. Yeah.
Mr. Nancy.
But in this case, it's a gentleman by the name of Papa Legba. Papa Legba stands at the crossroads and acts sort of as an intermediary between God and humanity, and he allows or denies permission to speak with spirits. They say that it's more so that being, because he was a larger black man and more related to his African spiritual roots, where there was a lot of connection, more so than the devil. And so Legba allows it to happen. Now you're going to see a lot of also voodoo and Haitian influences too, because a lot of these were taken. A lot of slaves were taken from the different islands as well and brought over here, and their religions are brought with them. We have to understand too, if you go to New Orleans, there's still a very heavy voodoo influence in that city. In Louisiana as a whole, there is a heavy voodoo influence. You see a lot of people dressed up at Saints games like Baron Samedi, and we've talked about Baron Samedi here on the show before. And I just want folks to understand where we're coming from there in regards to Bobby Johnson. I personally, like, if I was looking at this from an interesting aspect, I would say it's more Legba than it would be the Christianized version of the devil, based on the fact that there is that African influence still retained in that area. And, in Mississippi and Alabama, all through the South, where slavery was prevalent, you had a lot of that cultural brought over, and a lot of that in hushed tones held. It wasn't something that just disappears. It was just in more hushed tones and given to each other. And so I think it was more Legba than I do think it was the devil here. I think it was definitely more so of that.
And one quick extra fact I'm going to throw in there.
Please.
Remember I said that he recorded between 36 and 37, and he recorded 29 songs during that time, which is a lot for a year.
Yeah, 100%.
Which gave him success. So he had the success he wanted. A year later, 1938 was the year he died. He was only 27 years old.
How many of those 37 songs were hits? Out of curiosity, does it say?
Let's take a look.
Were all 37 hits? I don't think so.
All the 29?
Was it 29? I don't know why I thought 30. Oh, 37 might have been the date. I'm sorry.
I threw out a lot of numbers.
My fault.
Whoops. It doesn't say, but it says the acclaim for his work is based on the 29 songs that he wrote and recorded in that time. And he died in 38 at the age of only 27, the suspected victim of a deliberate poisoning.
So the entity came to collect, which seems to be very par for the course in these tales. So let's get into and I want to say this first. We are not responsible for any of you making pacts with the devil. Just let me put that out there. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because like Spider said, while we may not necessarily believe in it, it may become a self-fulfilling prophecy for you. So be careful. But some ways that can be made, and we're not going to get into the intricacies of how to do it. So, once again, we are not held
This
liable.
isn't a how-to
No,
dummies guide.
no. Yeah, because if you do it, you're probably a dummy. But some of the ways to do it are utilizing books. The two main books that I want to talk about are the Lesser Key of Solomon and the Shems al-Maharif, which I own a copy of because I do. And that's not really the point here. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a grimoire on sorcery that was compiled in the 17th century. It is divided into 5 books: the Ars Goetia, the Ars Theurgia Goetia, the Ars Paulina, the Ars Alamadel, and the Ars Notoria. Involved in these books are different ways to summon, control, bind demons. Now, if any of you ever seen the symbols attached with the Lesser Key of Solomon, there are these circles with intricate writings on the inside, and each one is different, and each one has to be drawn perfectly. Each one has to be drawn perfectly, and you have to know what you are summoning. There's like 30 some odd demons or more.
On a specific metal during a specific time of day with a specific kind of ink. It's every single one has very particular details.
And certain alignments of planets, certain times of the day, like he said. It is a very serious thing because you don't have the ring. The ring was lost to time. The Ring of Solomon was how Solomon was able to control demons. It is said that Solomon used demons to build the temple, made them build the temple to the Most High. Now, that isn't in just regular, you won't be able to find that in the Old Testament of a canonized Hebrew Bible. A lot of it is in Islamic folklore, and some of it is, I believe, in Kabbalistic folklore as well. I haven't delved too much into the Kabbalah yet. I do plan on doing a little bit of a deep dive into that, just to kind of learn and understand. But yes, this was one of the ways, and there's 5 different books: the Goetia, the Theurgia, the Paulina. It's Paulina, sorry. The Almadel and the Notaria. Like, these are all things that supposedly you can use to summon demons. I've never used it. I don't plan on using it. I don't mess with things that I don't truly understand or want to understand in a roundabout way. So that's one. The second one is the Shems al-Maharif wa Latif al-Arawif. And that is this. That's this book right here. Now, this isn't the full copy because it wasn't fully translated. It's bits and pieces. So there's bits and pieces of this floating around. But this has the ways to use magic squares to communicate with jinn and angels. Sort of like the Enochian speak that people have used, they say, to talk to angels. This is a copy. I've read through some of it. I don't plan on summoning jinn or angels because that's not what I do. But it is a 13th century grimoire centered on Arabic magic. It was written by mystic Ahmed Al-Buni, and it details your ability to communicate with jinn, angels, and also spirits. And it is 100%, without the shadow of a doubt, banned in every Islamic country in the Middle East. You cannot be found with this book. If you are found with the Shems al-Maharif, you can be executed, you can be jailed indefinitely, fined. It is 100% illegal to practice sorcery in Islamic countries. It's a very strict Orthodox Islamic belief. There's different, much like Christianity, there's different sects of Islam that allow for sorcery and things of that nature. Just like there's different. If any of you have ever read, there's a couple verses in Psalms that were used for. It's kind of witchcraft, more like protection spells. I'd have to pull them because they talk about them in a book that I have. And so in that regard, that's another way. that's another way to do it with this book. But like I said, I don't recommend trying it because, like we've said before, and like we continue to say, it could lead to a very not so great outcome on your behalf. Because I do believe these things exist. I believe there are ethereal spirits. I believe there's different realms. I believe there's different entities that do exist, and they could cause you harm. While they may not be able to take your soul specifically, they could 100% make your life a quote unquote living heck, as it were. So just be careful. I don't see a problem with reading these books. I don't think any harm can come to reading these books because it's all in your mind state. Where are you placing your mind when you're reading these books? Are you doing it for education? Are you doing it for some nefarious purpose? I believe that you can study this. Just protect yourself. Just do what you got to do to protect yourself. You don't want to let anything in that doesn't want to be there, or that shouldn't be there. Really, you don't want anything in that shouldn't be in there. And I have heard you can also make a pact with these entities just by saying it in your head. Just by saying it in your head, you can make a pact with these entities. I don't know how much I believe in that. I believe you could be tricking your brain into doing something like that. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, and they were like, "Don't you believe in anything supernatural?" And I'm like, "It's not that I don't, but I don't believe in your more far fetched concepts like this. I don't believe you can just be in your head be like, I want to make a deal with so and so. I believe there's actually a certain way to go about it, and I think that you have to do that way to go about it. Um, because here's the thing: entities will just not make deals with any Joe Schmo that walks along the block. They need to see a potential. It's a very give and take. They want to see what you have to offer. If you don't have anything to offer but a soul, they're not going to want that. They don't necessarily need that. They need you as a means to an end, just like you need them for a means to an end. And if you don't know how to bind and control these things, I wouldn't mess. I wouldn't mess even if you did. But people are going to do what people are going to do, and you can't really stop that. So it is what it is. Well, that's about all for this episode of This Uncanny Earth. I want to thank our man in the soul of a saint or a virgin. A virgin is a common trope in folklore. Sacrificing a virgin supposedly does this, that, and the third, or children because they're innocent. The soul of a saint is another thing. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic. But I want to thank our buddy Steven, basically Deadpool, as our man on the street. But for some reason, he was in space. Don't understand any of that. Don't know why he was in space. The Neuralink chip probably worked. He can breathe in space now. Very weird, very different. Of course, James, we appreciate you showing up. You are a regular. We got a lot of love for you. So thank you so much, James. Yes, indeed. Space Street. He's on Space Street. Oh, yeah, we loved it. We love having you on. Next week, we're going to bring you back on, talk about something else. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys always enjoy the show because the show was amazing. We've got a lot more content coming up for you. Also, we have some stickers available from wvfantasyworks.etsy.com from our lead designer, Leah Carpenter. She's probably sleeping, or I would have put the link. So, you guys got to do that. I have pinned it in the Twitch, so go check that out. And so do that. We got a lot of good content coming up. Hopefully Spider feels better next week. We're going to have to get a chisel and a hammer. We'll take care of that for him. So it'll be what it'll be. All right, y'all. As always, for me, Robert Solomon, and my co-host Spider, as always, and Deadpool too, as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week. Peace. Spooky. I gotta end the show.